Spot on Sports is being brought to you by Belfast Gastro Pub, where love stories begin. Located at 101 North Wellwood Avenue, Lindenhurst, New York.
Now it's time for Spot on Sports. Here's your hosts, Mike Trezor and Mike Cadone.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spot on Sports, New York's premier sports talk show where we talk New York sports, all New York sports, and nothing but New York sports. My name is Mike Trezor, the great Michael Anthony, flying the plane for us tonight. We've got a ton of baseball for you tonight. Yankees and Mets. We have a lot of Giants and Jets stuff to get to. Before we do any of that, let me say hi to my partner and my co-host, the coach, Mike Cadone.
Trez, once again, great to be here. Hope all is well in your world, but in the sports world, we just have breaking news coming out here tonight. Everything we spoke about in our last program, things are changing by the minute. Can't wait to get started. And here we go.
Yeah, sorry for a couple difficulties, folks, at the beginning of the show, but we are live now. And one thing before we get into sports, Mike, we want to welcome in our sponsor, the Belfast Gastro Pub in beautiful downtown Lindenhurst. It's a great place. Dave Crow, great guy from Ireland. His partner, Bobby, former NYPD guy. Their bartender, Carla, the great-looking Carla. They're
Carla
on board
from
with
Cheers,
us.
Or
No, much better looking than her. They're on board with us, and we appreciate their support. Before we do anything else tonight, though, folks, we want to welcome in for the second time to Spot on Sports, a guy who is a legend here on Long Island. He covered the Yankees, the Mets, all local teams for Newsday for over 40 years. We welcome him in from his luxury compound up there in New England, the great Bob Herzog. Bob, how are you tonight?
I'm good, and I appreciate the kind words. You might be slightly overstating the case, but you did get the over 40 years part correct.
Yes, and we thank you for joining us, Bob. And, you know, being a guy who's been around baseball for most of his life, I know you probably love this movie. It's one of my favorites. And, of course, I'm talking about Field of Dreams. I want to ask you about your impression of the Field of Dreams game last week between the Yankees and the White Sox.
I liked everything about it except the last pitch. Being a Yankee fan, which I can own up to now that I'm retired and I can be objective about things, I didn't betray that in my years covering them. But, yeah, I didn't like the ending, but I liked everything else about it. It was an exciting game. I think fans today liked the home runs. There was plenty of that, back and forth, walk-off game, a showcase game. I think I read it was the highest-rated regular season game in many years. I thought everything was good. I had no problems with the broadcasters. I loved all of the drone camera work, the cornfields, incredible backdrop. Even the Kevin Costner opening, some people thought it was corny. I thought it was great. Some people thought Verducci's hat was corny. I thought it was great. There really wasn't anything I didn't like about it, except for the last pitch. You know, good for the last drop.
We're getting some great comments already, folks out there in the audience. We invite you to tune in to comment us, and we appreciate you doing so. If you want to address your comment to Bob Herzog, longtime sports writer for Newsday, he'll be happy to take your questions as well. And I want to ask you, Bob, it seems like we can point to a line of demarcation as being the trading deadline, where the Mets seemingly didn't do enough and are now going a little bit south, and the Yankees did plenty and are now on the way up. What do you see that whole thing as having been? What effect do you see that as having had on this season for the Yanks and Mets?
Huge. And, you know, I'm not one to trash Cashman. I think he's been a great general manager, but my only reaction is, what took you so long? They needed left-handed bats. It was obvious in spring training. It was obvious in the off season. So getting Gallo and Rizzo, and who knew that they were going to be loved being in New York so much. I just wanted them because they were good players. I didn't know, and I didn't know how good they both were defensively as well. But it's really what they needed to balance the lineup. It turns out they're great clubhouse guys, and you know, and the Mets, you know, they didn't make the move, and you know, they were in on a lot of them, and they just didn't pull the trigger. But so I think you're right. I think that that had an effect on the teams going in opposite directions. But yeah, the Yankees definitely improved greatly at the trade deadline.
Bob, we spoke to you earlier before the season started, and since we've had, you know, obviously, you know, half a season plus. Going back a little bit to the All-Star game, I just wanted to ask you a question about really the lightning rod of baseball this year, Shohei Ohtani, and you know, his impact on the game. And in your years of covering baseball and professional sports in general, have you seen anything like it? And do you think that he can continue to be such a star on both sides, both pitching and hitting?
Well, if I knew the answer to the second one, you know, I'd buy a lottery ticket. But I do agree. He's been just a great thing for baseball. And as people pointed out, smarter than me, the written stories, actually, he's done greater than Babe Ruth, because when Babe Ruth was a star pitcher, he wasn't yet the slugger. And by the time he became the great slugger, he wasn't really pitching. So while Babe excelled at both, not at the same time. So Ohtani's doing something that even the Babe didn't do. It's tremendous. I don't know if he can do both. I don't know if he'll wear down. And I can't predict that, but what he's doing now is just fantastic for the game. He's a joy to watch. I hope for his sake that they eventually get a playoff team together, having him and Trout, you know, and then Pujols at the tail end. It would be good for baseball if Ohtani and Trout could get in the postseason. But if you ask me, you asked me part of your question, that I'd ever seen anything like it before. So I'll tell you a quick story. When Hideki Matsui came to the Yankees, the way that was treated here was, I've never seen anything like it. So I'm sure that the writers covering the Angels are experiencing the same thing. There were about 10 or 15 Japanese media who only covered Matsui, who was traveling with the Yankees to every home and road game. Of course, we didn't have a pandemic yet then. Every single one. So, and maybe even in spring training, there might have been 25 or 30 or more. And I never saw anything like it before or since. And to tell you, this is the best story about Matsui. So his very first batting practice with the Yankees, they had easily 50 reporters, the camera people. They televised his batting practice.
Wow.
I repeat, batting practice live in Japan. They televised it live in Japan, and because of the 14-hour time difference, it was like ridiculously early in the morning, and people were up watching at 5 o'clock in the morning Japanese time, watching him take batting practice. That's crazy in itself. But he hit a batting practice home run, and a woman out in the outfield got the ball, and like 9 Japanese media photographers are running out there to interview the woman who caught a batting practice home run live back to Japan. And I mean, it was incredible. And I got to know the Japanese reporters. They were all bilingual. The Yankees had a full-time interpreter, and he was great. And, you know, Matsui was one of the most accommodating players ever, because he had to do every interview, you know, in 2 languages.
Absolutely.
And wait for the question, wait for the translation, and the answer is the same thing. So it was a phenomenon. I'm sure Ichiro, that was a phenomenon. And so to think that this guy, Ohtani, is possibly even better than Ichiro, will be a Hall of Fame, and Matsui, who, if he played his whole career here, would have been, but he won't be because he didn't quite do it long enough. But yeah, it's a phenomenon, and Ohtani has actually trumped the other 2.
The only thing it kind of reminds me of, Bob, is a little bit from when I was younger. Fernando Valenzuela, Fernando Mania. Sure. Obviously, much different time. You know, not as much media at that point, but and only a pitcher. But the buzz that's created by an international player kind of reminds me of that a little bit.
It does, but I mean, just think of what I just described with Matsui. So think about if the greatest American athlete, and let's throw out there, I'll throw out Michael Jordan. You can argue it, but let's say Jordan in his prime. If he decided in the prime of his career that he wanted to play basketball in Europe professionally and not in America, would 30 newspapers dispatch somebody to travel around the world just to cover one person? One person, not even the whole team. I don't think so. I'm certain it wouldn't happen. And they did it. And I still remember when Matsui, he had a long streak of consecutive games played from Japan, carried over to here. He never took a day off. And then he pulled a hamstring. And finally, for the first time in his career, had to be on the DL and didn't play. And I remember those same 15 or 20 Japanese media interviewing him in the hallway every day to get an update on his whirlpool treatments or whatever it was, so that they could have something to send back home about it. It was like nothing I'd ever seen in terms of media coverage.
Yeah, Bob, my buddy Russ, who's tuning in, commented us that it was really nice to see Hideki Matsui and Sadahara O walking together at the Olympics. But I want to ask you, Bob, just to shift gears for a second. As a guy who most of your time covering the Yankees and the Mets was an era that was sort of pre-social media, to see guys that are athletes, obviously social media are a big part of their lives, but now to see a team owner who's as active on social media as Steve Cohen is, what's your reaction to that? Do you feel it's a good thing, a bad thing, or is it just, I mean, what's your reaction to that?
How much time do you have? Well, first of all, here, let me throw this out for you. If you think Steve Cohen is outspoken, can you imagine if we had Twitter when George Steinbrenner was one of the Yankees? I mean, it would be nonstop. You know, it would be rapid fire, second guessing his players, his coaches, his managers, the media, everything. It would have been crazy. I mean, Steve Cohen is a billionaire and it's his team, and he can say and do whatever he wants. And so it's an interesting thing for the media. As somebody who was a writer and an editor in my career, I'm still a little bit on the fence about social media. I can't say that I love it, but I can acknowledge it's had the greatest impact of anything in the media, short of, maybe the computer. But I mean, it's changed everything, how you go about doing your job and how fans follow the teams and the players. I don't love all of it simply because it's all opinion, and you're not certain if it's checked. I used to be an editor, so there's nobody editing this stuff before it goes out. In a lot of cases, the tweets from the ballpark, if they get something wrong, it's wrong, and it's out there. And there's such a haste to be first. I'm not sure that I love all of that, but if you're a fan, it's fascinating. There's so much information for you to get that we didn't have when I was younger.
I would say, Bob, the anonymity of it as well, that, the media is one thing, and people who are reporters and putting things out there, but just as you mentioned, the casual fan or anybody can be negative, can put anything out there and run with it. And before you know it, it spreads like wildfire, even if it's someone not related to baseball, not related to sports, whatever else, just that might have a little bit of gravitas out there, and their opinion weighs heavily. Yes, and that's the toxic dump side of social media: the criticism, the angry, the pettiness, and the viciousness and tone. It's terrible, and that's the part I don't like. And that's whether it's politics, sports, or business, or anything else. There is definitely a downside because everybody with a computer or even a phone can have a voice, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing.
I want to ask you, Bob, when we had you on the off season, we were diving into some of the new rules or more recent rules about the three batters, about the extra inning rules, the DH, and when that's going to come fully across the board. Have you changed your mind any through this season in watching some of these games? Change your stance on any of the new rules? Have you come to accept any of them a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm fine with the 2 7-inning games, believe it or not. I know some people don't like that.
Wow.
I'm fine with that, but I don't love, but I don't hate the 3-batter rule. I don't love it, but there were so many ridiculous pitching changes. Joe Girardi changed, you have 5 batters, 5 pitches. So, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. But the one that I actually hate and do not understand it, it devalues the whole game, is the extra inning rule, putting a runner on second base. You will never get me to like that. The games are decided by a runner that didn't earn his way onto second base. Games that's that goes against the grain for me. I do not like it at all. I would like to see a DH full time. That's one that I am in favor of, but I really do not like the extra inning rule. That's the one that I do not like.
Okay. I want to ask you, Bob, about this particular season and whether you think that the Mets can get back in. I know I told Mike Adone I'd let him talk about the Mets, but
that's all right. I've said enough about the Mets.
I couldn't resist. What do you think about the Mets' chances to get back in? And obviously that division is probably most likely only going to have one playoff team. So there's no doubt they might only have one team finish above 500. They definitely are only getting one. They're not beating out the wild card team that's not going to have a better record than the Padres or the Dodgers. But I would say the way the Mets are playing and not having Syndergaard and DeGrom and all of disappointment, and they still got half of this road trip to go against the Dodgers and Giants would bode badly. But before I write them off, again, somebody smarter than me pointed out, after that stretch is over, we'll see what the damage is. Assuming they don't lose all the rest of them, they have 15 games with the Nationals and the Marlins. The Nationals are a national joke, and the Marlins are winnable. So 15 games, it's not, so they could really, assuming they don't completely self-destruct, if they just somehow win a couple of these close ones, they lost a couple of the Dodgers that could have gone either way. If they just don't completely bottom out the rest of this trip, they've got 15 days of breathers. So that for that reason alone, I would say they still have a chance, because the Phillies, which were, instead of chasing two teams, they're virtually only chasing one now. The Phillies are just about back to them. I think they're like with a game difference. So the Phillies are falling on hard times. They're not really that good. And the Braves are doing it with a little bit mirrors themselves because they don't have Acuna. So it doesn't look good. The Mets aren't playing well. There's not much to be optimistic about unless they just kind of, split the remaining games in this trip somehow, and then have that stretch against bad teams. So that's what I would say. If they had a normal kind of a schedule, a balance, some good teams, some bad teams, whatever, I would say that they're kind of dead in the water. But the Marlins, the Nationals, and the Nationals especially are dreadful. They gave away the whole team, and the Marlins aren't great. So that's what I would say gives them hope to win easily the worst division in baseball, and definitely a one-team league.
Yeah, that's a great
one playoff team league.
Great point about the Nationals, Bob. I was actually over the weekend. I was down in the Maryland, D.C. area, and they were just getting crucified by the press down there, and rightfully so, because they didn't even try to pretend that they weren't giving the season away and just trading away any kind of viable option. Last thing I just wanted to ask you was, with the Mets, and we're going to stay on that because that's my club especially, but is there any way that the season really can be considered a disappointment? All the things you mentioned right there with the injuries and whatever else, it's almost, you can nitpick and you can look at things. Pitching was great, hitting was great, and then one is dropping as the other one kind of picks up. All in all, really considering what the expectations were and who was expected to produce, can it really be looked at as a disappointment? Even if they finish close.
Well, I don't know. I can't tell you what the expectations were for all for all the Mets fans, but seeing that division, I definitely thought the Mets could win 90 games. So that
sure.
Looking at that division now, they would win it. I'd say the biggest disappointment, injuries. Those are major injuries, but guess what? The Yankees have had more. There's 18 people on the disabled list, including a litany of stars. Someone did a graphic of the Yankees disabled list team. That team would win half the game. that just what was on the disabled list was enough. You had Cole and Montgomery and Severino. That's a rotation.
Absolutely.
So injuries are all part of it. But what I do think is Lindor is the huge disappointment. I wanted the Yankees to get him. I wanted to get Gleyber Torres off a shortstop. I wanted to get Lindor now and lock him up before all the free agents are out there next year. So when the Mets got him, I thought it was a tremendous signing. So it didn't work out. So whose fault is that? It's like I was covering the team when they got Alomar. I wanted the Yankees to get him. I thought that was a great signing. He had part of a good year, and then he wasn't that good. Jason Bay, same thing. He was coming off a great year. So sometimes the Mets made moves that I'm just telling you from a Yankee fan standpoint. I said, yeah, I would have wanted that guy.
Sure.
And then it turned, and Lindor was right at the top of the list. I thought they were going to swoop in, pull a surprise in the offseason, and grab the shortstop now and sign him like the Mets did smartly, and not play the game with the free agents in the offseason. And so what happens? Lindor's been a huge disappointment. I mean, injuries, yeah, but when he was healthy, he's been way below average, and I thought he was a superstar and a elite player. So that is disappointing.
Bob, thanks so much. It was great to be with you for a few minutes. And always a pleasure to see you and speak with you. And we'll talk to you again along the way, all right?
Sounds good. Keep in touch, guys. Great show. Always great to be on.
Thanks so much
again, Bob. Appreciate it.
What a class act. And he, we've been talking baseball for months now, but he just can bring in the little tidbits and turn them, to myself, to yours, to the general fan, but from a different perspective and from somebody who's seen it all and done it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And my buddy Russ also comments us, Mike, he is ready for the automated strike zone.
Ouch.
He's tired of lousy umpires and lousy officials, as you and I are. You can relate to that.
Well, yeah, lousy officials, absolutely. I could write you a book on that with basketball, but that's a whole different story.
But before we get to a little more baseball, Mets stuff with Chris Caputo a little bit later on, Yankee stuff with Declan, I want you and me to shift gears, Mike, and dive into Giants and Jets.
Again, a fine time to talk about it. And as we come on the air tonight, we were going to talk about your experience at the Giant-Jet game over the weekend, which I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on that. And we'll get to major injuries. But I wanted to ask you, Mike, was there a buzz in the stadium with people back? I mean, just in general, or, could you feel being a little bit more than just, your average Giant-Jet preseason game?
It was enjoyable. It was exciting. It was nice to be back in the stadium. It was nice to see a full stadium for football, because it was weird last year. Let's be honest. But I have to say, between the fact that the Giants really didn't play anybody, and the fact that it was really, if you recall, we were supposed to get a cool down that night. Yes. It didn't really happen. We were sitting on a very, very warm night. I think that took some of the air out of the crowd. And the fact that the game itself was so lousy. I mean, I hate to say that, but it was. I mean, there was not a lot, especially for a Giant fan, to cheer about.
Well, and truthfully, folks, I'll tell you, I was texting Mike throughout the game, asking him different questions, because I couldn't believe that Daniel Jones didn't even make an appearance, at least for a series or two. We had spoken on our previous show how much we were going to see different quarterbacks and such. I thought we would at least see Daniel Jones for a series.
I thought it was very strange, Mike, and I thought that you made two really good points. I want to go back to both of them that you made last week. Number one, the contrasting styles between Joe Judge and Robert Saleh, right? Robert Saleh, at least up till this point, the point you made was that he's sort of a designator. He's willing to sort of assign duties to assistant coaches and let them do their thing. Whereas we've seen, not just this preseason, but also last year, from Joe Judge, he's really kind of autonomous, right? Absolutely. He wants to run the whole thing.
He's a hands-on guy.
Run the whole show. The other point of yours I want to go back to from last week was the unpredictability of NFL coaches when it comes to this stuff. I went fully expecting, or I agreed to go, fully expecting Daniel Jones to play a little. My buddy Frank I went with gave me a heads up Daniel Jones was not going to play. And honestly, I thought that was really strange, and it's not about a Giant-Jet rivalry, because I know Joe Judge doesn't care about that. It's not about fans that drove in from Long Island or Connecticut or wherever they came from. I know he doesn't care about that either.
Sure.
But here's my thing, Mike. If you're only going to take 3 preseason games to get a guy ready who we all agree needs to take a huge step forward this year, how are you going to do that if you're not going to give him some playing time?
Unbelievable. And the thing I was thinking about during that game, and as you were just speaking, back in the 80s, I was a Chicago Bears follower and fan, I have to say, when the Giants were not winning. But looking at the Bears, could anybody have played their quarterbacks in a better situation in this first preseason game than them? Justin Fields, Andy Dalton, they're out there. Fields, who he's the future of that franchise. They just let him roll. They threw the keys out there. Daniel Jones, listen, Mike Glennon, great guy, I'm sure. He was on Hard Knocks a couple of years ago. For years, Jet fans were clamoring to get him because he's always been the backup that didn't get a chance. But Mike Glennon is not the future. So, of course, you want to keep Daniel Jones there. But great point. I mean, 3 preseason games, not even to get your feet wet a little bit. And he was not listed on any kind of reports for injuries, because you have to be if there's anything going on. So it was just a coach's decision.
And then you're going to let Mike Glennon play, assuming that you're going to be able to evaluate him. But he's not playing with any starters on offense either, Mike. The only guy who really got any run whatsoever was Darius Slayton, who had 1 catch for 8 yards. I mean, we're out there with David Sills, who I guess we want to look at, 3 catches, 49 yards. Damian Willis had a catch for a TD catch for 21 yards, and that was from
that was later in the game, right?
Yeah, who they already released. So, I mean, I don't understand.
Congratulations, you threw a touchdown pass. You're gone.
I mean, not only did we not have starters on offense in the game around Mike Glennon, we didn't have starters on defense. So, again, I'm going to sound, folks, like a Giant fan who's trying to throw cold water on Zach Wilson. I am not. Zach Wilson looked really good that night. But Zach Wilson is playing against 2 Giant starters on defense. And basically, I'm saying to my buddy, what are we doing here? I don't see anybody I know. I spent the whole first half saying to this guy, who's number 25? Who's number 49? Who's number...
Which is generally what you're doing, at least for half of a preseason game.
Yeah, but it's usually the second half.
Yeah, exactly. When half the place is gone. Well, sticking with the Jets, obviously their defense has been a huge story. I mean, the quarterback situation is more of the sexier thing to talk about, but their defense going in with all the free agent signings. Unfortunately, we found out today as we came in, Carl Lawson, he was signed 3 years, $45 million, considered to be, a superstar, really. In the making, if not already, coming to New York, going to be the anchor of the defense, and he blows out his Achilles, practicing today against Green Bay. Just devastating for the Jets.
And what a shame, because Carl Lawson was absolutely kicking ass this training camp and was probably the most impressive Jets player on offense or defense up to this point. You're right. Big blow for them. In terms of the Giant game, Denzel Mims had a good game for the Jets. And as I said, Zach Wilson had a really good game. Wilson was 6 for 9, 63 yards. And we can't overemphasize this enough, folks. Jet fans really need to be patient with Zach Wilson. He's shown that all the tools are there. But if you think he's going to be Joe Namath or even Chad Pennington overnight, you're under an absolutely false impression.
One of the things that I heard this week was Phil Simms actually talking about it, because as Giant fans, Phil gives us like a warm fuzzy feeling. But he was out at camp and he was saying that he has not seen a quarterback be able to throw on the run like Wilson does just at this young age. And the other thing he mentioned, which I thought was a great point. Young quarterbacks, if you watch them, it's not so much their arm, but their feet. And the young quarterbacks in preseason, when they first get out there, if they're nervous or whatever else, they have what are called happy feet. They're jumping. They're going all around. Wilson stands in the pocket, and he didn't have to make tremendous throws, but he didn't look like a deer in the headlights. He had his game plan, so he's being coached properly. He executed what they asked him to do. And again, you got to give him some time. But this is someone to be excited about.
Yeah, Jets, as we mentioned when we first did our first football show, Mike, opened the season with the Panthers. They'll see old friend Sam Darnold in that game. Then, of course, they host their arch division rival, the Patriots. It's going to be interesting to see who's starting at quarterback for the Patriots in that game. And then later on that month, on the 26th, they travel out to Denver for a game against the Broncos, who the Giants open the season with.
Interesting. I expect the Jets, I'm looking at them really if they're going to make a move this year, and we know it's early and we have this rookie quarterback scenario, but those first 2 games, those are winnable games. I mean, Christian McCaffrey for the Panthers, that's going to be the main game plan focus for the defense and stopping him. There is a great story, as you mentioned with the quarterback with Sam Darnold. I'm not expecting a huge jump from New England. They do have their own quarterback situation. So maybe, the Jets with defense can win, 10-7, 17-14, something, get a couple of wins going. But if you can't get, as a Jet fan, if you're not at least excited, new quarterback, new coaching staff, really solid head coach coming in here now, who, if you listen to him, he's got all the credentials and all the coach speak, and a general manager who is given time now. Great time.
Giants, as we mentioned, Mike, open the season on a Sunday, 4:25 game. They host the Broncos that day. They'll travel down to Washington to take on the football team
yes,
on a Thursday night. That's the 16th. And then they'll round out September with a game against the Falcons at home. That'll be the Eli Manning Giant, jersey
Ring of Honor retirement ceremony. Yeah. Atlanta, we took a quick look at them. They were just dreadful. Absolutely dreadful in their preseason opener. Not expecting a lot of them. Denver, they're in a quarterback situation as well. Is it Teddy Bridgewater? What are they doing in that respect? Washington, listen, all the hype about them also is their defense. That's a top 5 NFL defense. So Mr. Jones and company are going to get a good look. Hopefully Saquon Barkley back by then. We're not going to see him. I would be shocked if you see him at all, but he is practicing, going full tilt. He's off the PUP list. And that's exciting times too. So nothing better than mid-August. You still, at least from a Giant standpoint, we don't have anybody on the injured list that we're Kenny Galladay. We talked about him. I'm a little worried about him, hamstrings again with receivers. But Jet fans, don't lose heart. Losing Lawson, big time, but you'll be okay.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear this word from the Belfast Pub, and we're going to be back with more on Spot on Sports right after the break.
Hi, my name is Dave Crow, proprietor of Belfast Gastro Pub in beautiful downtown Lindenhurst. We are the heartbeat of the village, serving exceptional dishes throughout the day, created by our executive chef, James Tomlinson. Whether it's to dine in our purpose-built outdoor dining area that seats 60 persons, or to enjoy a pint or a cocktail at our 40-foot mahogany bar. We also have a private catering room that can accommodate up to 60 guests. Love stories begin at Belfast.
Now back to Spot on Sports with Mike Trezor and Mike Godone.
Welcome back to Spot on Sports. Mike Trezor, the coach, Mike Godone, and we're ready to talk some Mets baseball. Mike, can you handle it?
I can handle it. The one thing I just want to say about the Belfast Gastropub, it's 5-7. I haven't eaten all day, and man, does that look like a place I'd like to go grab something to eat.
It's great. It's great. I practically live there.
Well,
when I walk in, it's almost like Norm walking into Cheers. It's like, Mike. So
I can understand why you're going there.
Yeah, absolutely. And to help us talk some Mets, folks, right now is our Mets reporter, Chris Caputo. He joins us now. Chris, are you okay?
I'm doing okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you look great, Chris.
All right. Well, we're on a one-game winning streak.
Yeah, a little bit of a rough stretch that you're coming off of, Chris. Swept by the Dodgers. 2 extra inning losses in that series. That Sunday night game, I can't sugarcoat it, Chris. An absolute embarrassment. You go out to the coast, drop the first 2 against the Giants. As you said, you were able to salvage that last one. Now you guys head to L.A. for 4 games. What are you expecting out of that series?
Well, I think we are a little bit we got to take game 1 tonight. They're actually throwing Knievel, which is the guy's only had 3 starts since he came back off the 60-day. Hasn't thrown more than 1.1 innings. So this is a bullpen game for the Dodgers. So you're hoping that the Mets can take advantage of that. And then, with Walker. And then the unfortunate part is you got Carrasco and Hill against Walker, Buehler, and Max Scherzer before Stroh pitches on Sunday night. Now, that I think is the tough part, is you're destined to lose two in there. You got to make some magic happen. And I'm hoping maybe Rich Hill pitches well and, the Mets get lucky and hit Scherzer a little bit. The 7 line's going to be there. The one strange thing is LA is ticking, and they are making people wear masks 100% throughout the ballpark. You cannot take it off at any time.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Chris. I don't know if Michael Conforto listens to Spot on Sports. I hope he does. But last time after the three of us ripped him, he's been ripping the cover off the ball. What do you think the turnabout has been for Caputo, for Conforto?
I don't know. Well, the night that Mike and I were there, I was wearing a Conforto shirt. He had a breakout. Extra work in the cage has definitely helped him. We haven't really talked too much about the mental part, but a lot of this stuff it's hard for these guys, and I think that mental attitude, they just need to start seeing.
Oh, I lost you temporarily.
A little better now. Sorry. Am I back, guys? Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're back.
It's mental, but the hard part is the Mets was still 2 for 29 with runners in scoring position in San Francisco. So as much as Steve Cohen wants to tweet out there that things have to change and whatever, things have to change. And you're playing with Chance Cisco as your backup catcher now, as James McCann was walking but holding crutches in his hand. I mean, it has gotten to be comical for the Mets. And how they're able to do this. You look at all these guys, and they just keep going down, and they're not coming back. So I think
Yeah, Chris, we lost you just for a second.
Nice to see. Sorry about that. I guess
that's okay.
The Wi-Fi
no problem.
here.
What I was gonna say to you is it really has. It's gone from the sublime to the ridiculous when it comes to injuries and just everything the Mets have been dealing with. But you mentioned the 2 for 29, I believe, against the Giants. Last week against the Dodgers, I think it was 2 for 26 runners in scoring position during that series. These are top level teams that the Mets they've had their chances. Is it plate discipline? Is it just the lineups? What is it?
It's sad that guys can't even put the bat on the ball. When they have bases loaded, they're not even making contact. They get first and third, and it's going to be a strikeout and a double play. So it's really tough. And here's the hard part. A little trivia for you tonight. The Mets' 13 straight games against the San Francisco Dodgers and the Giants are the first time that somebody is playing 13 straight games against somebody with a 600 winning percentage since the 1980 Toronto Blue Jays. So at this late in the season. So it's not easy.
Can we get the Elias Sports Bureau to check that?
You want us to get the two teams that they were playing that were over 600?
Correct.
1980, huh?
Let's see. Was it the Yankees and the Royals?
No, the Blue Jays in 1980.
No. I'm asking who the two teams that were over 600
One
were.
had to be.
13 games against teams 600. I don't know. It could have been even 3 teams. But that's,
okay.
The only good part, guys, I know you're talking with Bob about Mets' chances. The Braves still have to play 9 games against the Dodgers and San Francisco. The Mets finished the season with 3 games against the Braves. I know it sounds crazy, but if they could get to 3 with 3 to go, they have a shot of tying.
So I want to tell you, Chris, I don't know if you got the news as we were coming on the air. I bought the Mets from Steve Cohen, and the first thing I did was I fired Luis Rojas, and I replaced him. I'm replacing him with Chris Caputo. So Chris Caputo is now the manager. What is Chris Caputo doing to the lineup, the rotation, and the bullpen configuration to shake the Mets out of the doldrums?
Easy questions.
Please. I actually would put Carrasco in the bullpen. He's got a 10.32 ERA with 4 starts since being activated. The Mets always give up runs in the first inning, and he's one of them. I would probably bring up one of the guys from the minors and go to a bigger bullpen. The lineup wise, I like VR higher. I would use Loop earlier in the game. He's been unbelievable. I think sometimes they wait too long. So I would just say, for the most part, I like Alonso in the 2 spot. I like Conforto in the 3 spot. You have to play Nimmo. Hopefully, Guillorme can come back and give you a little bit soon. Peraza, I don't think is coming back anytime soon. So if I'm the guy there, honestly, for the most,
You stunned him with the question.
I'm just. But before the game, there has to be more situational stuff. I don't see these guys just making contact, hitting the ball to the right side. These guys can't bunt the ball. You got a guy on second in extra innings, and we're trying to bunt with a guy who's never bunted before.
With Chris, in the game we were at last week, they actually did. If you remember, I'm not sure who it was, but they did bunt over, and we looked at each other in amazement. I think we were high-fiving over a sacrifice bunt, because it really is. It's crazy how the game has changed and how they're just utterly unprepared. 2 weeks ago, Jeff McNeill's name came up as we were speaking, and he at the time was really the only Met that was hitting. Seems like it's kind of gone the other direction. What's happening with him at the moment?
He is just trying too hard, and he's pulling everything. When he's going well, he's slapping the ball. But even when he's trying to slap the ball, he's got 1 foot stepping out of the box. Everything right now is line drive ground ball to first base or second base. He's got to get his front shoulder in and start going the other way and slapping the ball. And he is a guy who just gets frustrated after frustrated. When he's hot, he's hot. And when he's not, you're not even going to see him run out a ground ball. It's really tough. I would actually drop him in the lineup.
Which, again, as I brought up, I thought the organization was down on him a little bit, and it's that kind of stuff that'll do it.
Yeah, and, for the Mets, there's just too many issues. And when you have too many issues, they just compound each other. And, you got guys that, we talked about it, Mike. They're not even their pitchers, for the most part, to swing when they get to bat. You have a guaranteed out. Stroman actually swung the other day, because I see these guys bunt. Okay, they're out. Next thing you know, they're getting shelled the next inning. We don't have the DH except for when we go up to Boston next month. But for the most part, they got to allow these guys to do stuff. Hey, we don't want to allow this guy to swing because he might into a double play. He might pull a muscle. Well, you know what? It's now or never.
Absolutely.
I want to surf back to the rotation for just a minute, Chris. You mentioned Carrasco. I mean, he's had some really short, really bad outings, including the one against the Dodgers, 6 runs in the first 2 innings. You mentioned Mcgill. He's, for the most part, done a really nice job. And Taijuan Walker, who you talked about last time, you think is just out of gas. So, are we going to get anything out of Syndergaard this year? I mean, what do we hear is the latest about Syndergaard possibly coming to the rescue?
He threw some batting practice or some simulated stuff to both Lindor and Guillorme the other day, but he still has to do a couple of rehab. So everybody talking September 1st, he's going to be throwing 3 or 4 innings max on September 10th.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like that's very much help.
By then, I think it's done with.
Yeah. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
I said to you before, Mike, DeGrom is done. Syndergaard's done. I mean, you're not going to see these guys. They're waiting another week or so just to let DeGrom have another MRI, and then after that, they're going to have another.
Well, to finish his thought.
Okay, why don't you? Sorry about that. Both guys, I think, are done.
No problem. Well, listen, I think all the MRIs that the Mets are taking are affecting your internet tonight. I think it's just sucking all the juice from your area. It is. It's unbelievable the amount. Just the MRIs, the injuries, and everything else. We're almost to. Let's see. It's August 19th. They're still in it here, despite everything. So. I know we always count on you to be the ray of sunshine for the Mets. I'm going to be it a little bit tonight. In 2 weeks, if that's when we see you again, if we still have some breathing, if we're still 3 to 5 games within striking distance, or who even knows somewhere else, I'm going to be excited. If it's anything over that, we can, I think, try to find something else to talk about for the end of September.
Well, I hope at least maybe your Yankees can help. Monday and Tuesday night, you guys are playing the Braves, so maybe you can hit Charlie Morton a little bit, get a couple of runs, and give us a few wins.
We'll take it.
Yeah, just to come back and piggyback onto your point about the schedule, Chris, you have 9 games still left with the Marlins. Obviously, you're going to win a good number of those. 6 games still left with the local Nationals. And in terms of climbing your way back into the division, you, as you mentioned, still have 3 with the Braves as well as 3 with the Phillies. So that's good news for you.
Sorry, you got to keep it somewhat close come mid-September because those 6 games are going to mean a lot. And honestly, you're probably going to have to win 2 out of 3 from the Phillies and all 3 from the Braves. But we'll see.
All right, Chris. Great job as always. We'll talk with you along the way. And good luck out in L.A., okay?
Yeah, we'll see. And hopefully next week we can take 2 out of 3 from San Fran at home, and we'll be talking positive next time.
All right, just keep that 7-line Army flag up there, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Cap.
All right, Mike. So we're going to do a quick 180, shift some gears here, and get right into some Yankee talk. We're going phone and Zoom tonight. We had Bob on the phone, Chris on Zoom, although maybe we should have had Chris on the phone.
That's all right.
And now we're going to get Declan on the phone. So joining us right now, folks, is our Yankees reporter. I'll bet he's in a good mood. That's Declan Krogman. He joins us right now. Hey, Deck, how are you tonight?
What a beautiful Thursday night. Thanks for having me, Coach and Mike.
All right. Yeah, so I want to get your reaction, first of all. I mean, we definitely owed the Red Sox a couple, Declan, and we put it on them the last couple nights. What was your reaction to the series against the Sox?
I mean, completely from Andrew Heaney to Anthony Rizzo coming back. I mean, my expectations were completely shattered through the roof. I mean, to go in and sweep Boston, not only sweep Boston in your own building, do it at the stadium. That's something that means so much for this team. But to pass them in the wild card standings and pass Oakland in the process, the series could not have gone better in my eyes.
Yeah, I also want to ask you about, this might sound on the surface, Declan, like nice problems to have, but don't forget, over the next week or two, the Yankees are going to be getting back Gleyber Torres, getting back Gio Urshela, and now they've gotten back Anthony Rizzo, and Aaron Boone is going to have to find playing time for all these guys. How do you see all that shaking out?
Well, I see it shaping out in a few ways. We're going to see a lot more of Luke Voit at the DH spot. I mean, they got him DHing tonight and leading off. As Luke Voit called it, it's like they have a goal line package at the front of the lineup with some of the big boys there. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. It's going to be in less reps for Brett Gardner, who, although he has been very good hitting as of late, hit one into the cornfields on the last time the Yankees lost, which was a week ago today in the Field of Dreams game. But he's going to see limited reps, and that's fine because he's 38 years old and he was never signed to be an everyday player, re-signed to be an everyday player, that is. So seeing Luke Voit get in will shape out. It'll probably move your boy Rugi to the bench, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world. He's one of the better bench players in the league if he's going to be operating from that position. But he has been a great leader for the team, so I wonder if that's going to have an impact on morale. Hopefully it does not, because he definitely is a glue guy, but he's going to have to wind up playing, from a utility spot here. And Velasquez, we're going to probably see sent down as electric and really amazing as that kid from the Bronx has been. But I think having those guys back, you're right, is going to be a good problem to have. Hopefully sooner rather than later, so this team can gear up for a run in the postseason.
And the good news just continues also. I just was checking before we got on the air tonight, Declan, about Luis Severino, MRI, no structural damage. Again, this is not somebody who we're anticipating playing any kind of role here as the Yankees finish out this season. But it just seems like as the Mets, and I don't want to bring them up again, go from bad to worse, the Yankees just go from good to better, and everything's ticking here.
Yeah, Coach, I'll never have any problem with you mentioning how the tides have turned in New York baseball recently. So you can do that as much as you like. But yes, as you mentioned, Aaron Boone spoke with the media before tonight's game against the Twins, who they've historically been very well against, fared very well against, I should say. Second opinion, confirmed no structural damage for Luis Severino. Hopefully he can come back. I'm not sure if he's going to be well enough to be stretched out into a starter come September and October, but he could be a very viable option out of the pen. And you guys have referenced Cheers all night, whether it's Carla or Norm. How bad the Yankees could really use a Mayday Malone in his prime coming out of the pen. And Luis Severino might be that guy if he comes back healthy towards the end of September.
Wow, that is a nice job,
Declan. You can't be old enough to make that kind of reference right there. Are you
kidding me? He has to see Cheers and reruns. Come on.
Good man right there. Holy cow. Jeez.
But I did want to go back to the whole infield rotation for just a second, Declan. Did you make anything of Voigt's comments, or did you feel that whole dust-up was overblown? He sort of sounded off a little bit, expressed some frustration with the fact that seemingly his playing time is going to be curtailed now that Rizzo's off the COVID list and back healthy. Do you think that Boone is going to have any problem negotiating that?
I think Boone will be okay because he's got a lot of options, and they're already starting to make sure that lineup takes shape by DHing Voigt and even throwing him a bone and hitting him lead off today, which is something he spoke to Meredith Marakovitz of the Yes Network before the game today during batting practice and said he loves doing that. As far as his comments goes, initially I didn't love them, but I think a guy of his size, his stature, and especially what he's meant to this team the past couple of years, to be a little cocky and say that he was top 10 in the MVP race last year, really he was like top 5. Led the league in home runs in the shortened season, has been a very good player. He said great. I would say he's been a very good player for them as of late, as of the past couple of years since he's been here, and from that trade for Chase and Shreve straight up to the St. Louis Cardinals. I didn't love his comments, especially because now it puts Rizzo, who's coming back from COVID, in a potentially worse spot. And this team is hot. So I didn't love the need for him to come out and be, so strong about I deserve to play just as much as he does, because in reality, he does not. He's been struggling this year, and what brought Rizzo here in the first place is that he played in about 34 games, and he was hitting 220 in the games he played in with 3 home runs for a guy who, like you mentioned, led the league in home runs last season.
And I will tell you something right now, and I'll bet as much money on it as you possibly want to bet. There is no way that Luke Voigt makes that play to end that game last night at first that Anthony Rizzo
Totally
made.
agree. Totally agree. That was an excellent play and a great play by Velasquez, kid from Fordham Prep, who has really found his groove here since being called up from Scranton in the past few weeks. I mean, that was an excellent play. Rizzo's not even just a gold glover. He's a platinum glover. And I bet you it screws Boston even more because they were in on him and they wanted him bad in Fenway. And he went to their arch rivals and really stuck it to them last night for the sweep.
Luke Voigt is not good enough to make that kind of statement. It's amazing. Rizzo now is on the team, and you're going to see him feel a lot healthier and not be out of the lineup or want to play more. It's amazing how well guys get when someone behind them comes on the team. You know what I'm saying?
It reminds me of Pete Alonso and Dom Smith, to reference your match.
Very good. Listen, when I was my very short stint of playing college basketball, I was not good enough to get hurt and miss time, because I'll tell you what, there were so many other guys that were so much better than me. I was scrapping and clawing. So hurt, please get back to me another day, Luke Voigt. Maybe step away from the buffet and get yourself a little better shape and see what happens.
Mike Cadone does not like heavy set guys.
I don't like Luke Voigt.
You don't like James Harden?
I don't like James Harden. I don't like Kyrie Irving, but I'll tell you who I do love, Jamison Tyone, who's throwing it tonight.
Oh, absolutely.
Come on, he's my new favorite Yankee.
Absolutely. Hey,
He's
Declan,
been doing very good.
You mentioned Andrew Velasquez. You jumped ahead of me with that. The kid has really done a nice job. Do you think there's any possibility, or maybe I'm fantasizing here, that when Glaber does get in the back on the field, that Andrew Velasquez can steal a little time away from Glaber at short?
I don't think he'll be able to steal as much time as we would like, potentially, from Glaber at short. But if he could steal some time and wind up finding himself in some pinch running situations and potentially being a, bench player who gets a start here and there, that would be something I would like from him. However, I think that the numbers, unfortunately, are so stacked against him, because now you got Odor going to the bench once Glaber and Gio come back. Now we also have Tyler Wade, who's been pretty well. I mean, really has played above his pay grade. Nobody expected him to be this good at the bottom of the lineup when he was starting for the Yankees. I mean, he really was just getting trashed as a pinch runner because that was viewed as his only dimension and only aspect of his baseball team. So Tyler Wade's hitting about 275, and right now this is a guy who's been producing for the team, so you would expect him to be brought into a bench role and that pinch running role that Velasquez, with his great wheels and great defense, would really like to see himself in. So I hope he can just enjoy the ride for now. I would love to see a way that he can wind up on this team. I'm just really cautious of it because with the bullpen arms that this team is going to need, I'm not sure that he's going to be plugging up a roster spot.
You mentioned the bullpen, Declan. Let me bring up a couple guys with you that nobody really is talking about. First guy, Luis Gil, who now has made 3 starts, doesn't have an ERA at all. Nasty Nestor Cortez, who I thought when the season started was going to be this year's Chase and Shreve, maybe pitch an inning here, an inning there, kind of junk balling, rag-armed lefty. And the guy that nobody ever talks about that's done a phenomenal job for us all season long, Lucas Litke.
Wow, Lucas Litke. I'm not as high on Litke as you are, just because I feel like I've seen him come in and time again, and kind of just, you see him miss high with that sinker. You see him not locate the curveball. Sometimes he hangs the curveball. I'm not a huge fan of Litke, but he has been good enough to be a nice part of that bullpen. But I wish he wasn't the guy that they had to go to in the 9th inning last night with Chapman was coming back rusty.
Got the job done.
He did. He got the job done.
That's how you're rolling right now.
He got his first save since August 21st of 2012, which I believe was his rookie season against the Seattle when he was with the Seattle Mariners. So it was nice to see. It was nice to see him get back into business there. So I can live with Litke, which is, I guess, it's not going to be a problem. However, you're right. Luis Gil has just been fantastic. I think he's the second player ever, or since 1921, to start his career off. First 3 starts, give up no runs, and register 15 Ks total throughout those first 3 starts. So really history in the making in the Bronx. It's unfortunate he's got to wear number 81. I hope he likes Terrell Owens or has a reason for that. But he's been very good, as you mentioned. And Nestor Cortez is another one. He was hit around big time in Seattle last season, came back to a familiar spot in the Bronx where he pitched in 2019 out of the bullpen. And now he was viewed as an opener guy when they first decided to put him in the rotation for a little while. And now he comes in and he gives you 5-6 strong innings. This is a guy that I feel more confident with than Andrew Heaney, if we're being perfectly honest, as good as Heaney was last night.
Wow, between Chris Caputo with the Mets, his trivia, and Declan tonight with pulling out 19,
these guys
20.
Good, Mike. These guys are great.
We are very, very lucky to have these kind of guys.
Well-oiled machines.
Absolutely. He knows Sam Mayday Malone. I mean, my goodness.
Thanks.
Declan, hey, listen, and I think the way things have been going for the Yankees, you got Giancarlo Stanton in right field tonight. What's the over-under on an error or a game-saving play? What do you think?
Dude, that's another thing that I'm glad you mentioned. Giancarlo Stanton starting his 9th game out in the outfield. I view this as such an amazing thing,
right?
Considering the guy was getting injured as a designated hitter, and now he's back in a familiar spot. This is the guy that he's not the MVP that they traded for 4 off seasons ago in 2017. However, putting him back in a familiar position in right field, not even left field, right field, he's been playing a decent amount. When he's in left field, he's been playing good. His numbers have gone up since the All-Star break, and it's been really refreshing to see. I think he's a better hitter when he's playing in the outfield. It's not easy to be a designated hitter. However, I think he's been so much better since he's been in the outfield, and it's really been crucial for the Yankees to have that level of production out of the 4, 5, 6 hole wherever you can insert him, because he's been hitting and he's been fielding well.
Interesting stretch coming up, Declan. We welcome the Twins in for 4, and then we've got 2 against the Braves. Mr. Godone and Mr. Caputo are hoping for some help from us. And then we go out to the West Coast for 4 against Oakland, 3 against L.A.
Yeah, that Oakland series is something I'll definitely circle on the calendar coming up. Maybe I can get Trezor to stay up till midnight, 1 o'clock to watch those games. That would be really nice. Seriously, we can't do anything different than what we've been doing the past 6 games. So, I was anxious about not making the first pitch tonight. But you're absolutely right. Twins, the Yankees have fared historically well against them. They've done well in the past few seasons, postseason and regular season included. I don't know about spring training. I don't know those kind of numbers. But we'll bring the Braves. We'll play against the Braves 2 games. I hope that they can get the help over in Queens from us, which would be nice. But no promises because Charlie Morton has been dominant. He pitched really good against the Marlins last night, going 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, and 9 strikeouts.
I don't know if you can see our screen, Declan. Chris is asking, does this mean we can play Rizzo at first base, Voit at DH, and Stanton in the outfield?
That's what they're doing tonight.
Yeah, that's what they're doing tonight, Chris.
That's the hope. You could put Judge in center field, or you could even put Gallo in center field. Gallo, you don't expect him to be a top defender. He's a Gold Glove guy with a great arm. I mean, he is one of the better arms in baseball. He's second in assists behind Hunter Renfroe of the Boston Red Sox, who we got to see a little bit of also in center and right field the past 3 games. So that's the plan I would like to see. Gardner, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, will take some reduced reps. But Luke Voit, listen, I know we got on him for some of the comments he made earlier in the week, but he seemed really refreshed when he was talking on the Yes channel earlier today before the game during batting practice. He went from calling Anthony Rizzo to Anthony, and I think that is actually an underrated asset, and it brings more camaraderie to the team as it shows that he might have had a little bit more conversation with Anthony Rizzo and potentially, now pure speculation here, but it's something I like to see when a new guy's already on a first name basis after coming back from the COVID IL. I think Voigt's attitude changed, and I like that for the better of the team.
Well, maybe when Rizzo came back into the clubhouse and his World Series ring was so prominent, and he said, look, Mr. Voit, let's just take a step back here, and then now we can be friends.
Hey, take it from me, Declan. When you have one of those names, Rizzo, Trezza, that just rolls right off the tongue. So we don't get bothered by that.
I understand that. But the one thing I will say with Rizzo, and what kind of confused me about Luke Voigt's comments, is that I don't want to sit here and say Anthony Rizzo's a rental because I view that as the worst case scenario. But contract-wise right now, he's not locked up for the 2022 season. So if I were Luke Voit, I really wouldn't have been coming out firing, saying all those things when it hasn't been the best year for me. I haven't stayed healthy. And now they're bringing in a potential replacement that he said he understands is a lefty, but he feels like he deserves to play just as much as him. I don't think he does. However, the lineup is better when he's in it. So if he's DHing and he's happy, the team's going and everyone's firing on all cylinders, I love it.
What he's going to find, though, Declan, in all honesty, is if you make those comments once and you get spoken to and it gets straightened away pretty quickly, you're okay. But if this becomes a habitual problem moving forward, he's going to talk himself right off the Yankees.
Yeah, and that could be a problem. And thankfully for him, the July 31st trade deadline is passed. I don't make a huge deal out of his comments. I think that I'd rather see a guy hungry than a guy content with playing off the bench.
Oh, he's hungry.
Because now look, very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you opened that one right there, Declan. I'm sorry, pal.
I did. He definitely wears his jerseys about 3 sizes too small, but I guess that's the style these days. But I mean, going back to Luke Voit, I don't want to say what these comments done, but looking at the lineup right now, it's putting Stanton out in the outfield. It's allowing Rizzo to be a nice platinum glover, which that'll happen regardless because it's Anthony Rizzo. As Odor said, the first thing he said when Odor moved third base was, just throw me the ball anywhere, I'll catch it. Luke Voit is not that guy, but he even said today, I don't have to move around as much. I like it. I'll be hitting in between at bats. And yeah, he's really, I'm looking forward to Luke Voit. I have an optimistic view on how he could play out for the rest of the season.
All right, Declan, great job. We're looking forward to talking a little Yankees with you in a couple weeks, and enjoy the game tonight, okay?
Thanks, guys.
All right, Deck, enjoy, buddy.
Thank you. All right, Mike, we ran a little bit over tonight, but great show tonight.
Absolutely. And the one thing I know we didn't get to, the Knicks, Obi Toppin. All right, 21 points, 8 rebounds, all first-team summer league. I know we're talking about Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker this week. Obi Toppin, watch it happen.
Listen, call me in November with Knicks stuff. I'm excited about the Yanks right now.
I know you are. I got to get a little something in there.
All right, folks, so that's going to do it for us here at Spot on Sports. We are at the Great Format Studio here in beautiful downtown
Deer Park.
Our producer engineer is the great Michael Anthony. Our theme music Spot On is by Scott Daly. Our logo art by Valerie Hanatic, the Jets fanatic. Our voiceover guys, the amazing Archie Snowden. And we want to thank Bob Herzog, our special guest tonight. Thanks, Declan, for hopping on with us. Thanks, Chris, for coming on with us. For everyone here at Spot On Sports, including the coach, Mike Adone, this is Mike Trezor saying thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Spot On Sports.
Spot On Sports is being brought to you by Belfast Gastro Pub, where love stories begin. Located at 101 North Wellwood Avenue, Lindenhurst, New York.